femme-identifying, however and whichever way we come. Prior to colonization, we were all accepted as equal parts of society. We didn't need feminism and equality because we had sovereignty. As a Native woman, I know that sovereignty of my people, Wahine and Mahu especially, is bound up with the liberation of my transnational sisters. The only way off the colony and imperialism is together. We at Affirm invite you all to engage and break the system with us. For us, that looks like public education and training, holding the system accountable while we fight for liberation from it, abolishing forced definitions and labels, like rejecting gender binary and calling out gender violence, and acknowledging that the choices we must make to survive as people of color are not the end point. So here's up. But please know that we can't demilitarize without dismantling patriarchy, and we can't talk about sovereignty and liberation for women and LGBTQ in this current social and political climate without centering all women and LGBTQ. We at Affirm politely say, fuck your bigger cages and longer chains disguised as our only options. These systems and institutions aren't sustainable or healthy for us. We'll do the work of reducing harm, but we won't stop there. Sovereignty and liberation is always and forever the goal. Kalamai. Mahalo.
Thank you so much, Yvonne, and thank you for being so brave and courageous in speaking right now. We love you. Okay, next, either Kim Coco or Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen. My pronouns are they, them. And if it's okay, I just want to take a moment just to remember Jennifer Laude and her life. The murder of Jennifer Laude in this film, it really struck me, and I just want to say that I can relate just because in my own life I've been called it. I've been yelled at, like, oh, are you a boy or a girl? And so I just seeing this film again and knowing this story, it takes me there. And I really appreciate what both of you said. Just especially being here in Hawaii, we've got the largest trans population for any state in the U.S. There's over 8,000 trans adults in the state, and then in high school, 9th to 12th grade, there's over 1,000 trans-identified youth. 25% of those identify as Native Hawaiian, and the other 25% Filipino. The disproportionate amount of trans women of color that are murdered in the U.S. is unbelievable, and I wish Jennifer Laude's story was unique. One of the ways that I'm 100% with Affirm on all of what you said. So, but one of the ways that I've been able to find to fight back is through just living my truth, which can be scary, but also through the laws that are right now set up. They're completely colonized and they're working against us, but I really think that if we work together, we can change things. So right now there's two bills that are still alive in the ledge that directly affect the trans community here, and the most important one, especially because of this film, is there's a bill that takes away the option to use trans panic as a defense, a mitigating defense. So as you saw in the film, Jennifer Laude's murderer was able to reduce his charge to homicide from murder, which is what it was. And if this bill, with hopefully your support, makes it through the ledge, that wouldn't be able to happen here. So if someone tried to say that that the person that they were with was trans and that warranted what their actions, that wouldn't be an option anymore. And then another bill that I've been advocating for would add a third marker to driver's licenses here. And that's because the gender binary is fucked up. I mean, it's fucking everybody up. And so by adding the third marker, we're saying that, hey, we're not just an M or F. There's many other identities, especially among the Pacific Islands. So I really just wanted to speak to that and just honor Jennifer Laude's memory and just, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm truly humbled to share this time and space with these panelists and, of course, you. So first I want to, I guess, locate myself within the context of this film and U.S. military imperialism and the current occupation of Hawaii. So I'm a descendant of, all of my ancestors have come from Japan. And my mother's experience with having been moving to California, she had the internment experience. And then here in Hawaii, and then ironically, my father met my mother when he was in the military. And I think it's just really, interesting that you mentioned the Japanese occupation of the Philippines and how that led to this mass movement and displacement of a lot of Filipino peoples, and actually the use of and the trafficking of young Filipino women into the brothels that the Japanese were running. I also want to, so anyway, that's how I'm here, and I also want to talk about a little bit, just to identify the role of Japanese farmers as part of the colonizing experience here in Hawaii, the use of, migrants it's part of the colonizing for a big ag to lock into a land, and then the role of, and this is something that Candace wrote about in her book, the kind of normalizing of the occupation as being false through the role of Japanese in Hawaii. So I want to identify that and give that context. This movie was very, I actually, as an activist for several decades now, my roots in activism started with Transsexual Menace, which was a street protest group that formed around the murders and the deaths of trans people on the continent mostly, because that's where I was living at the time. And so we took it to the streets when paramedics would allow a trans person to die after being in an auto accident, when they discovered that the victim was trans, and they just let her bleed out in the street. And there were witnesses that said that they pulled away and stopped treating her because they said that's a dude, and she bled out and died. And so we drew attention to that, and of course the murder of Brandon in Nebraska. We brought some visibility when we went there to address those issues. So I'm very, there's a part of me that needs to avoid watching documentaries where trans people are murdered. It's really, really hard, but when I see amazing warriors and amazing people doing the work, I can watch this. But it is, there is that trip of a documentary being made on the backs of slain community members, and so that's really hard. But it was so important because it was so much more than that, obviously, in watching it and taking that leap of faith to be a part of this panel, to watch the documentary twice, which is really about, again, your strength to fight against this huge empire in history and decades, if not centuries, of that kind of colonization. And as an attorney, I'm just so inspired, and I feel so inadequate about what I've been doing, considering your history of advocacy and the way you approached it, looking at it from just very intimately, and your use of, or you're working with community to raise all of those issues and to make sure it was impacting so many people's lives. So I thank you for inspiring. It's made me think about what's next in store for me. How can I use my legal training more? So thank you. I look forward to having a discussion, I guess, at some point about this.
So thank you guys for staying with us. We're going to have a Q&A right now. I love that you guys are spending your Fridays with us, Friday nights. So in honor of International Women's Day, for the Q&A, we would like to prioritize women's voices and women identified, so trans women. So your questions get priority. So we're going to have some of our volunteers, and probably Rebecca, run the mic. So please, women, all of you, do you guys have any questions for our panelists? And for the rest of you, please just, wait and have the women, we want to create the safe space first.
We have a taker.
Yay.
Hello. Hi, my name is Joanne Badua. I work in the legal field as well as an attorney. And my question is, and it's to everyone, how, and maybe in the practice of law, it's sometimes difficult to, not difficult, but challenging to separate the emotion aspects, with your judgment or your legal eye. How are you able to navigate through those nights of preparing for that motion and maintaining, the reasonable arguments and fusing it with your passionate, feelings, and that's all. Thanks.
Hello. Okay, how did I do that? First, I'm not only a lawyer. I myself is an organizer. And yes, of course, I am an activist. And for the longest time, I've been handling only labor cases. I love the workers and the fisher folk and the farmers. And of course, the causes of the women, abuse cases, sexual harassment cases of women, especially those in the workplace. In this case, I put myself in the shoes of the mother because I am a mother too. I am a mother to 4 women, and really I cannot imagine my children to suffer the same gender-based violence, to be discriminated simply by reason of having that gender. I have several friends or members of LGBTQ family, and I always put myself into the shoes of my client. I mean, that is the only way for me to be able to understand them. But after understanding them, then I always try to be objective. But I must say, maybe I'm a bit biased because, In my 23 years of practice, I never handled any corporate, I never handled any rich family, I never handled any, because if there's anyone who has money who will approach me and engage my services, I would always decline. Because my day one of becoming a lawyer, I decided to simply serve the workers, the basic sectors, the members of the marginalized sectors. It's not easy in the Philippines, because in the Philippines you're always expected to dress well. You're always expected to have a car, and I would always commute. I've been in the practice of the law for 23 years, but I only had my car 3 years ago. So when I was handling this case, I was even commuting 3 hours from Manila to Olongapo. I didn't have enough money. In fact, I lost 10 pounds in the first 10 days. Yes, I lost 10 pounds in the first time. I was practically losing 1 pound every day. Because the family has no money, I was handling it pro bono. I did not ask for anything. It's just good that there are groups who offer me like, Virgie, maybe you need a car. Virgie, because this is one thing that was not shown in the movie. Whenever I would have a trial, Pemberton would be brought to the Olongapo, convoy, protected, with three truck loads of US soldiers and the Philippine soldiers. And I would be there in the bus alone. And I would always say, why would they protect the one being accused and not protect me? Not protect me or not even protecting the family. No? So I was just happy that there are people helping me. In fact, there's this group of people who asked me, what do you need? And I said, I need nuts, I need food. And I was telling them, what did you ask them? I told them, can you send me some nuts? And eggs, and teas. Yeah, these are the only things that that feed me all throughout the case. So at least after some time, then okay, food is starting to come. Yeah, so at least it took me like 6 months to gain back my 10 pounds that I lost for the first 10 days. When I handle the case, it's important that you really have the full trust of the family, because I already imagined that the US forces, the US embassy would be coming to them for settlement. So immediately I told the family that I have rules. I'm accepting your case, I'm handling your case without obligation on your part. The only thing that I ask is that your full trust, and your full trust in me, and therefore my full trust in you, so that everything who will approach you, you have to inform me. Because I understand that, a lot of people would approach them. So that was my simple rule to them. So somehow, I managed to be objective, but I guess I must say I'm a bit biased, because after all, I never really handled the case of the other side. I have always been on the side of the basic sector, the women, the farmers, the fishers. So it was, again, because of that, it was not that difficult. One thing that makes it difficult is simply because it's the US. And it's the community that is pro-US. At this point, I just would like to share that, education is really important. Colonization did not happen overnight. Colonization and that culture, colonial mentality, it happens every day. And it started with education. Remember when the US colonized the Philippines, the first thing that they sent are the teachers, the Thomasites. It's really the education. And the present education that we have in the Philippines alienates us from our own history, from our own culture. For example, that's why I would always say, why is it that the elementary students are not taught about the history of the community? we would graduate without even knowing the history of our own small community, of our barangay. So what would happen? If these people from the community would graduate, they wouldn't care. They're back to the community and help the community because they do not know the community. What they know is the world history. So this is the kind of education that we have. It is alienating. So that the only way that we can use, to combat this imperialism, this colonization, this colonial mentality is also through education. I mean, we do not learn everything in that, four corners of the room. We will learn so many things outside. And so, discussion on the ground, discussion outside the room, all these things. Because imperialism will never be taught inside the room. So, we teach imperialism, we teach colonization, we do decolonization outside the school. It's not only our nation, it's not only our territory that is colonized, our own bodies, our mind, our heart, our soul. It's winning the hearts and the minds of the people that is being used by the military. And therefore we counter that. We only win the hearts and the minds of the people, that is through education. So that's how important discussion is, discussion on the ground. Because there is that colonial mentality, there is that the mindset, the culture is already there, so it's not easy. Thank you.
Did you want to add?
Yeah, sorry. Hello? Okay. So I wanted to, in watching the documentary, there's the narrative of the trans person as victim and as not having opportunities, etc., which is so real for so many people. But I feel like sometimes that narrative makes invisible other aspects of trans lives in the region. So when we saw Duterte getting elected, that same exact year in a neighboring area, there was a congresswoman, Ramon, who had, came from a long family of politicians in there, but she ran and she was openly trans. So it's just interesting to me that narrative was left out of this documentary. And we discussed this earlier, and so we wanted to maybe give this an opportunity to be discussed now. And one of my questions was about, did she benefit in a way from the community organizing generated about the injustice? And I wonder now, did Duterte also benefit from, because he made these comments right after about we're going to take on the US, and that's what you were doing. You were setting that, getting that fired up. Very interesting. And so it's interesting the decision that was made around of keeping her success in a way invisible. So I don't know if you want to share any comments about that.
Yes, it's Congressman Geraldine from Bataan. It just happened also that Bataan is one of the areas of our organization, and it is also the Bataan people who would always go to Olongapo to rally in support of the case or in support of the Jennifer Laude. Yes, I must say that this must have benefited Congressman Geraldine, because this case has really united the LGBTQ family in the Philippines. Because this case has really brought at the forefront the issues of the LGBTQ family. Suddenly, yes, they're speaking. Suddenly, people are talking about them. Suddenly, they are everywhere. Suddenly, they are being interviewed by the media. So that, yes, I guess, yes, this has benefited Congressman Geraldine. As to Duterte, well, maybe, but I must say that it's more on Duterte projecting himself as one of the masses that has led him. I said projecting himself because I do not believe that he really is for the masses. because now he has already killed 27,000 Filipinos, and that's practically 27 deaths every single day. For the 3 years of his administration, he's already killed 27,000 under the war on drugs of Duterte. So yes, maybe.
Okay, so do we have any other people from the audience?
Hola, hello guys. I'm from Mexico. I'm also a student. Thank you for your hard work and for your 10 pounds also. I really appreciate that and to share your time in this film. Mexico and Philippines has a common factor, Spain, yeah. And I would like to know how you guys dealing with this cultural conditioning from the guys, the men in Philippines. For example, machismo, right? And machismo was created for colonialism, right? And so how you guys dealing with that? If there is any education in the school about gender? What is the reaction of the men about this case in the streets? Yeah. And how's the woman reaction about this case too? Are they like afraid or accepting this sexuality over there? Or are they supporting transgender women over there? Also, that's the first question. And second question, how is this case in particular affecting the presence of the United States in the Philippines? If there is any change in the law or there is any any push in there to remove the presence of the United States in the Philippines? Thank you.
First, as to the question, how did men react to this case? There is this incident when I was speaking with a lot of businessmen, and then one of them said, even if I was in the shoes of Pemberton, she or he, he lied. I mean, that's fraud. So I would also kill him. I would also kill her. So you think there is lie? There is lie there is fraud there, there is dishonesty there. So are we going to kill all these honest people? Is that what you're going to do? Then we all kill our legislators because they are all dishonest. And then I even asked him, have you not cheated on your wife? And, oh my goodness. And that silenced them. Telling lies does not give you any. Even if indeed Jennifer Laude lied again, lied on her gender, that's not the reason for Pemberton to kill him. Remember, and then there was even Jennifer is a prostitute. Or even if she's a prostitute, that does not also give you the right to kill. If you're not satisfied with the sex, then don't pay her. But you do not kill her. So that, I have to push them to the limit. And in fact, there was even this say that, she's a prostitute. She's, because in the Philippines we call it puta, prostitute. She's a prostitute, she deserved to be killed. If I am a prostitute, would you kill me? Yes, I am. Would you kill me? Then you have to just push them to the limit, so that to the point that they cannot silence them. So there are these several reactions from the men, because they think they are so privileged that when it comes to sex, they cannot, they cannot be cheated on. That they're as if they're the only ones who can cheat. They feel so privileged. Now, we have a president who is a misogynist. There has been so much disrespect, there's been so much discrimination, there's been so much harassment, so much from the president. And therefore, you expect that the same thing is actually being practiced by the other government officials. In the Philippines, it is always the women now who are leading the fight against this misogynist administration. That's why, all the more, that this president is really very, very angry to the women, because it has always been the women fighting against him. And he also could not believe, because he thinks he's that popular. He always believes that he has the biggest number of votes. But then De Lima, our one senator, Senator De Lima, was actually garnered the same number of votes, just like Duterte. Duterte had 16 million votes. De Lima has likewise 16 million votes. And De Lima was fighting him. So what did Duterte did? Duterte sent her to prison. Now, but despite being in prison, she continued to fight. She continued to deliver statements and make all these statements against our misogynistic president. So, our organization, we focus on education, because we believe that it is only in education that we can teach all this, that we can smash patriarchy in no other way but through education. Because sometimes there are also women who believe that who do not think that they are being abused, who think that they are not being harassed, who think that things are just normal. And that is one thing that we should fight. Because the normalization of discrimination, the normalization of harassment is not right. It is not correct, but it is happening. And that is one thing that we should struggle to raise. But we can only do that if we will be able really to teach, to discuss where patriarchy is coming from, the roots of oppression of the women. I mean, if we do not discuss this with women, they will not be able to understand. Yeah. Imperialism, supports patriarchy. The perpetuation of patriarchy means likewise the perpetration of capitalism, of imperialism. The military would always use the women's bodies. The rest and recreation culture is present with the US, so with Japan. Remember the comfort women? See. So it has always been there. Imperialism always uses militarization. Wars and militarization would always mean oppression to women, because this always means military sexual violence. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll take maybe one or two more questions and we'll let you go. Rochelle.
This question is more for Don and Jen. Do you folks have discussions about, I guess, like militarism, like feminism, sex trade, trans issues, LGBTQ issues with your families? And if you do, and I guess like how it intersects with militarism in Hawaii, because my dad, my uncle,